think there's a bigger picture here, and we call that gentrification. When you starve a community of the educational services, when you starve a community of the support services for its youth, for its elderly, for its children, when you starve a community of basic services, pediatric care, maternity care, and primary care, with a place for people to go, where people who have to access public transportation need to go to someplace in the neighborhood, you destroy a community. And what do? This is prime real estate, close to the city. What do you think is going to happen from Sanford Avenue as it slowly seeps down into the rest of Mount Vernon? I was involved in the Coalition to Save Metropolitan Hospital in East Harlem. It was a poor community, mostly Latinos, and there was a desire for gentrification. They wanted to close Metropolitan Hospital. We formed a community coalition, a combination of the workers in the hospital, clergy, and the community, and we saved that hospital. It is open today and functioning. These things are possible. There are different strategies we can use. It's a lot of work. I don't want to fool you and tell you it's not a piece of cake, but it is not a done deal, and it is possible. And you know what? If we don't fight them, what happens? They keep doing it over and over again. You gotta fight. Sometimes you win, sometimes you lose, but we plan to win, and we plan to fight them because we have the moral high ground. We asked them, well, at White Plains Hospital, I also looked up the population of White Plains. White Plains has 60,000, according to 2017 census, that they had 59,000 people. Mount Vernon has more people. So what's the problem with Mount Vernon? Why does White Plains get a hospital and Mount Vernon closes its hospital? What's the difference? I don't have to tell you what the difference is. So we need to call them on that. We need to call them on the things that they're doing to this community. And this community, as nurses, all the patients are our community. Our community are the people that we care for. And I have to tell you, we also do disaster work in NYSTA. I was in Haiti after the earthquake, in Puerto Rico after the hurricane. We've been down to Tijuana at the border, you know, walking through debris, walking through, sometimes I look in my ER and all I'm not doing is crossing rivers. It's the same thing. People are crowded together, it looks like World War II. That's not what you do that in disasters. And I have to tell you, in the disasters we give great care. People got good care, because it's not just about a building, it's about the people who care about the patients and want to deliver the services. And all we're asking for is the supports to be able to do that in this community. It's not too much to ask, but it won't happen without a demand. Without a demand, it won't happen. Without a struggle, it won't happen. And we are committed, and I know this community is committed, and we are going to fight on. It's up to you, it's up to us, it's up to all of us. And we can't give that fight up. We won't give that fight up, and we're going to stay to the end. Thank you so much.
How many people showed up? It was full, right?
So it was a good, well, two things. It was a good crowd. Let me close that. It was a good crowd, but I have to say, for myself, I was disappointed that there were any empty seats with an issue that is this important, with everybody talking about it in the community. And this was a town hall. Maybe it wasn't fully advertised to people didn't know about it. We talked about it. I talked about it on 3 shows. I talked about it on here, on Radio Westchester, and on our Black Westchester Power Hour on WVOX. We talked about, I sent the word out through blackwestchester.com. I know there's other people in churches that had done stuff, but there shouldn't have been an empty chair in this room. There should have been standing room only where people were lined up against the sides of the walls. You know, it should have been like that, and it wasn't. So I wanted to do this, and I wanted to have Reverend Fuller. This is Reverend Fuller that just popped up on the screen here, who's also part of the steering committee. And I wanted to, we've been hearing that it's a done deal, that is nothing that people have given up and feel that there is nothing that can be done. And we want to talk a little bit about that, give some information. And there's another video where a gentleman breaks down what the process is of closing the hospital. That video is about 6-7 minutes long, but if you bear with me and watch that video, it is a lot of vital information that is not getting out to the public, and that's what we wanted to do. So I wanted to welcome Reverend Fuller, first-time guest. Thank you. There you go. Pull your mic close to you. Speaking to your mic. You asked me about where we can see people can go to intermixedradio.com, but also my Facebook page. We can share it to your Facebook page, and we can, anybody can share it to their page and watch this live. But I wanted you to come through. I'm also part of the steering committee but I wanted you to speak on this process. Like I just showed the video, so we'll start with that.
Thank you so much. Brother AJ, I appreciate you having me on today. It's a real blessing and honor to sit with you and share with you some of the facts and concerns that we have about this this atrocious recommendation that the Montefiore conglomerate is trying to make. My name is I'm Reverend Gary Fuller. I'm from the Greater Centennial AME Zion Church. I do sit on the steering committee with you. We all appreciate your presence and your participation in the steering committee. And so the major point here that folks are missing is that this is not a done deal. The proposed hospital closing is not a done deal.
Really?
And so what's happening is that the Montefiore conglomerate has moved, I would say, quite stealthily in terms of positioning themselves to orchestrate the downfall of the Mount Vernon Hospital. Let's start from the beginning.
Right.
So when Mount Vernon was taken over by the Montefiore complex,
it's like 2011, 12,
maybe a year. It might have been a year later, somewhere around there.
Yeah.
And so they started siphoning off services from the hospital over the objections of the professionals that worked in Mount Vernon Hospital and over the objections of the New York State Nurses Association. And let me give a big shout out to the folks at the New York State Nurses Association.
Yes.
Shout out to 1199.
Yes.
They have come on board to be our partners. They are strong. They are mighty.
I want to interrupt too. I want to double shout them out and salute them as well, because they're in contract negotiation and they can settle and they'll be fine and they'll have jobs somewhere.
That's correct.
But they're continuing the conversation of keeping this hospital open in their negotiation.
It is not their intention to cave in their negotiations, and you're right. They could settle tomorrow morning if they wanted to, and all of their nurses will have jobs not only in Mount Vernon Hospital, but in other places if they choose to. But the New York State Nurses Association has chosen to fight this thing and to stand as our partners in the community. And so we respect them for that. We support them just as much as they support us. And so to continue, the services that were siphoned off out of Mount Vernon Hospital has drastically affected the utilization of Mount Vernon Hospital. And so here we have Montefiore Complex actually creating a scenario that they can use for later to justify closing the hospital. If you think about the fact that they purchased the building that they plan to build this new emergency room service, they purchased the building 5 years ago. And so they were planning way ahead of us, moving in the night, if you will, and trying to catch us sleeping at the wheel. But our eyes are open now, and we've got a firm grip on this steering wheel, and we're going to make sure that this not only stays not a done deal, but it never gets done at all.
And I just want to, and also the reason for doing this. Now, we always tell people, everybody who's heard my mouth has always, the communities like Mount Vernon and anybody who can hear my voice, the things that you're not satisfied in your community, like things that happen in the Mount Vernon per se, don't happen in other municipalities because the residents do not tolerate it. Where the Mount Vernon residents, some of the residents of Mount Vernon have given up and they accept it. And I've been telling people, you have the power. And this is one of those situations where it's going to take the community to stand up and say, no, you're not closing this hospital. And not only are you not closing it, it's not just about keeping the hospital open as is, but you're going to, if you're going to continue to be our partner, you're going to transform this hospital into a state-of-the-art hospital that will serve the needs of the community that it sits in. Or I believe there are ways to, once you fight keeping the hospital open, to discontinue services with Montefiore and team up with other healthcare systems. And, if they're not going to do it, we can find somebody who can do it. And the people don't understand that they have the power. And there's going to be a lot of talk about going to meetings in Albany and going to stuff like that and all that stuff.
Absolutely.
But the people have to do it, and the information wasn't getting out there. And I reached out to Pastor Poe and was like, we need to get someone on the air, because I said it at the meeting. Y'all can come on whenever y'all want. Nobody got to me. So I told Damon hit me. I was like, we need, the video I put up was good, but everybody didn't see the video. We need to address it on the show. And I reached out to Pastor Poe. And
let me cover a couple of points with you.
Okay.
So let's look at the application submitted by the Montefiore conglomerate asking for the $41 million. One of the two major points I want to bring to everyone's attention is this: that one of the requirements on the application is that Montefiore must have and conduct community-wide meetings and listening sessions to gauge the needs and wants of the community. The other part of that requirement is that they must show in their application how the engagement of the community had an impact on the information that they submitted in their application. And Montefiore has disrespected Mount Vernon to the highest degree, because they never came to us to ask us our opinion. They bypassed that process, and now they're perpetrating this dishonesty upon the Governor Cuomo's office. So we have been disrespected. They haven't been completely honest in their dealings with the application, and they certainly have been totally dishonest in their dealings with the people in the community. And so the other thing is that Montefiore has not submitted the necessary paperwork to close the hospital. It is not a done deal. Getting back to the application, the committee that is designated to review the application, of the Department of Health, is scheduled to meet on the 23rd of this month. We do not know if they are going to
put this on the agenda.
Put the certificate of need on the agenda. Now, the certificate of need is the document that they're using to justify opening the emergency room facility. Just so folks are clear, this emergency room facility is propagated to be a state-of-the-art emergency room facility staffed by board-certified emergency room doctors and nurses. It will have all of the bells and whistles of a state-of-the-art emergency room. What it will not have is surgery. It will not have operating rooms. It will not have surgeons. It will not have inpatient beds. And so the thing that we need to think about is this is the most critical time in our very lives, because our very lives are at stake. If I get into a very bad car accident and I have an open or gaping wound, they're not going to take me to this new state-of-the-art facility. Minutes will be added to the ambulance ride because no one in Mount Vernon will be able to operate on me. What do you think is going to happen to me?
I'm going to die.
For those
What about these poor seniors?
For those injuries that are every minute, every second counts. It's going to be a big deal. Now, I wanted to show. Now, this is a little lengthy video, but it has a lot of information, and it needs to go out to the community. It's titled "The Fight Is Not Over." There's a presentation by Edward Yu, the New York State Nursing Association Director of Strategic Research. He explains and breaks down what the process is of closing a hospital, what they have done, the 2 stages they still have to go through, and where the residents can push back on the state level at those two situations.
He was there representing the hospital or helping you guys?
The New York State Nurses
Nurses Association.
He was there to inform the community on what's going on.
Was anyone from the hospital there?
At this one, no, they had not at this meeting. They were at an earlier earlier town hall.
Okay.
No, this is basically there's a steering committee of people that are trying to save and transform Mount Vernon Hospital. We meet and gather information. There was a town hall. The community asked a lot of questions. We gathered the information and then came back to the community on what the answers to their questions and what they can do. So we're going to get into this video, and hopefully it will answer some questions from some of the residents, especially for those who were not at the town hall on Monday.
With the AV slides, but my slides are in this packet, so if you don't have it right now, just make sure before you leave you get a copy of it. I don't want to, I'm actually okay with not using PowerPoint because I find it way better to engage with you all instead of having you read the text on the slide behind me. So just bear with me as I kind of walk through sort of how we got to this point where your community is in danger of losing full inpatient services in your hospital. And then I want to talk about the opportunities that Reverend Pogue and Mayor Howard mentioned about where we can still intervene in the process that is not completed yet. I want to repeat that. The regulatory process to close the hospital and build this new replacement facility is not complete. And there are ways that we can still engage with DOH, with elected officials, and with the state government in order to keep the hospital. So, in terms of hospital closures in the state, since 2006, 20 hospitals have closed in New York State, 20. All of this is, I think it was mentioned by Reverend Pogue, Montefiore isn't even hiding the reason anymore. It's all about the bottom line. And community needs are relatively small, I think, in the calculation that these large employers make when they decide how to allocate resources to their various hospitals in their system. So it's been a trend, unfortunately, that we at the New York State Nurses Association have been fighting back against because a lot of our smaller community hospitals have faced mergers, have faced closure threats, and unfortunately some have even closed because of this mentality that the bottom line is incumbent upon success, not the health outcomes of a community. However, we have been able, in some places, like in central Brooklyn, to preserve a community hospital, revitalize it, and connect it with the health network that is, I think, the way forward. So, Interfaith Medical Center in Brooklyn was in threat of closure along with Long Island College Hospital, which unfortunately closed. But in that fight, we were able to preserve Interfaith Medical Center. It is now part of a larger health system called One Brooklyn Health. It was largely due to the efforts of a community very much like yours that came together, that formed a coalition and pressured the state into keeping the hospital open, and not just keeping it open, but revitalizing the much needed services in the community that we were able to keep there. And we are now working very closely with the hospital management, with the state government, with state DOH especially, to make sure that the hospital there continues to flourish. And I believe that that's a model that we can follow as a sort of guidebook to what we can try to accomplish here. So let me just walk you through the two processes that were alluded to here. The first process is the actual closure of the existing hospital. And the second is a regulatory process called the Certificate of Need, so just bear with me. The reason that Certificate of Need comes into play is when a health system like Montefiore wants to construct a new facility, wants to substantively change its operations in a facility. For example, they want to add services, add beds, or take away beds and subtract them from their operations. They're required to file a Certificate of Need application with the state that states their intentions first, and then second, outlines the need and proves to the regulators and subsequently the community what the need is for this. So when they announced they wanted to build this new facility on Sanford Boulevard, they were required, this automatically triggered the Certificate of Need process. They had to file an application. So my team at the New York State Nurses Association, one of our duties is to track these applications so we know what our employers are planning to do with their services. And when we found that they had submitted the application, right around Christmas, they finalized the application to clearly state that they are planning on closing the existing hospital that is in writing, that is part of their plan. And then they're going to construct what they're calling an off-campus emergency department on Sanford Boulevard. So I just want to make this clear. This is not a hospital. They're calling it a hospital without beds, which is completely ludicrous to me. So it's an emergency department that's not attached to anything substantive. If you walk into that hospital with a truly emergent situation, they're going to try to get you out of there as fast as they can to one of their other hospitals. Ambulances that have truly emergent cases in them will not go to this emergency department. They will go to a hospital that has inpatient capacity. So this is not a replacement facility in the sense that it's going to be a hospital. And whenever you hear from this time going forward, they call that thing a hospital without beds, just remember, it is not a hospital. It's an off-campus emergency department, which I want to also point out, the clinical wisdom on this is that in urban settings, this kind of quote-unquote replacement for a hospital doesn't actually do the thing that it says it does, which is reduce cost. Hasn't been proven to do that in an urban setting. Reduce wait time in the emergency departments, hasn't been proven to do that either. But unfortunately, our Department of Health is allowing these things to proliferate, and Mount Vernon is just the latest city to have to undergo something like this. And luckily we have some folks in this room who have gone through this process before in the Bronx and other places. I think that we'll be able to talk a little bit more to this point. But the other regulatory process that gets triggered, a certificate of need, is when they want to close Mount Vernon Hospital, they have to surrender their operating certificate. And when they do that, they have to submit in notice 90 days prior to the closure of the facility that they're to DOH that they're planning on doing this. And this, of course, follows an internal process that the hospital goes. Their board of directors has to make a determination that they no longer want to operate the hospital. They take a vote. The CEO then tells DOH that they're planning to do this in writing. And then 90 days prior to submitting surrendering their operating certificate, they have to notify DOH. The DOH, when they receive notice, has to inform the community, and they have to publish an impact study. So DOH has to then tell the community what the impact of the closure is going to be. So these are still opportunities in which the community, once notified, can take action to let DOH know that they're opposed to this, especially when they do the impact study. So here's where we kind of are tracking the timeline. Sanford Boulevard still has to go through the approval process for certificate of need. There is an advisory body to DOH called the Public Health and Health Planning Council, FIPIC. They advise DOH on certificate of need applications that require that are of the scale that we're describing here, like, for example, the construction of a new facility. This body has not considered Montefiere's application yet to build the new facility. The earliest that this could happen is January 23rd, but we're not going to know about it being considered by this body until about 10 days before they actually do it. And they meet both in New York City and Albany. In the time that I've been tracking these issues and attending these hearings, generally they don't disapprove many things, unless the few times I've seen them do it is when the community comes and demonstrates why there's opposition in the community to the application, and that's the only way that FIPIC knows that the community and other stakeholders are opposed to the application. So that's why this certificate of need process is so important. There is still an opportunity for the community to tell DOH, tell FIPIC that they are opposed to this application, and it's not a done deal. Monty cannot start providing services at the new location until this application is approved. So they own the property. They can start renovating, they can break ground, whatever they want to do, but they cannot start providing services until this body has weighed their application and approved it. And that hasn't happened yet, so we still have an opportunity to intervene. And just a reminder, there's that also the second track that I described, which is when they outright close the hospital, they have to notify DOH that they plan on surrendering the operating certificate, and then they have to DOH has to do an impact study. Another opportunity for the community to intervene. And we'll talk about this later in the call to action. Throughout this entire protracted process, DOH can still be reached. We have means of doing that we'll go through. Just make sure that you let your voices be heard. This is not a done deal, and don't let DOH think that this is a done deal. Excuse me. So, before I finish, excuse me, all the things that I have spoken about are in this packet. They're available on a table out there. There's also a summary of the CON process and a flow chart that kind of describes the process in a more visual way. I just want to let you know that if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them later today and tonight and moving forward. But just know that these processes are quote unquote transparent and open to the public, but only as much as they can be. It is incumbent upon all of us to stay engaged and make sure that when we have the opportunities to go intervene, we do our best to be present, because it is the only way that entities like FIPIC and DOH will hear our voices. So thank you very much, and I'll be available for questions later.
Now, I know that was a lengthy video, but there was so much information in that. Like, we could have sat here. What we would have been doing is telling you what they told us, and I just wanted you could see it for yourself. So that cuts part of the process. I'm also going to get the digital version of the stuff that they gave out, so I can share it digitally. I have it. I have the hard copy, but I wanted to be able to post it on Black Westchester, where you can peruse all of the information yourself. Summary of this whole thing is that Montefiore has 2 more processes that they have to go through before this is a done deal. And at both of these procedures, the community has an opportunity to make their voices heard and let the Department of Health know the importance and the impact of having this hospital or losing this hospital would be.
Let me add another level of process. Also, the plans, the actual physical plans that Montefiore has for this new emergency room site has to go through the Mount Vernon Zoning Appeals Board review. It has to go through the Architectural Review Board. It has to go through the Mount Vernon City Board of Estimate. It has to go through the City Council. And most of our City Council representatives have said that whatever is within their power, if it is within their power, they will say no, if it's within their power. So they have come out to support this thing. And here's another vital, important point that the community must know about. If Montefiore is allowed to submit its operating certificate for the hospital, it will be nearly impossible to convince the state to open up a new operating certificate for a new hospital or to reopen Mount Vernon Hospital.
If you lose the hospital,
that's it.
A city that loses a hospital very rarely ever gets a hospital back in that city ever again.
And the sociological implications are here that we also need to talk about. As a social worker, I'm concerned about a few things. We have now a full, I would say, Mount Vernon community. We are a community of primarily Black and brown people. If the major healthcare provider is removed from our community within 10 years, I'm afraid that we will go from community to a colony. Yes. And that is drastic, I know, but we have to look at what history is teaching us. Communities cannot survive without a major healthcare facility. And now, so the certificate of need process contains information that is going to be used to convince the Public Health and the Health Planning Council to grant its certificate of need. We believe that Montefiore has made a dishonest statement in their certificate of need application, in that they have consulted with the community, or that they're basing their actions on the fact that no one is using the hospital. And so if a declining use of the hospital is a natural occurrence, where throngs of people have moved away, where people have where the hospital has fallen into disrepair, where the population demographics don't require a hospital, that's one thing. But Montefiore has deliberately and intentionally siphoned off services from the hospital. Their newest CAT scanning machine is 20 years old, for crying out loud. And so they have deliberately set up this scenario so that they can say that no one's using the hospital. Well, who's going to use it if there's nothing there?
The equipment is not working. Yeah.
So our mission is to keep Mount Vernon Hospital open and to have a transformation. And let me just add one thing to this. In the application for funding, and this is very important, my brothers and sisters, please listen to this. The application of funding allows the healthcare provider three options. One is to pay down debt so they can refurbish their equipment in hospitals and come into state-of-the-art operation. Number two, build a new facility. The third option is to refurbish an existing facility. And so not only did Montefiore refuse to come to the community to ask for his input, they decided unilaterally, without speaking to us, to choose the option of building a new facility and not refurbishing Mount Vernon Hospital. They could have done it, and they can still do it. But we have to make sure that we are on point. And I want to talk to you about.
I just want to say
that's blatant disregard.
I just want to say for the audience, yeah. I want to welcome my fellow host Damon K. Jones. He's Skyped in, and he's there. I know y'all see him on the screen. So,
Brother Damon, how are you?
Hey, brother, how you doing? Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. It's good to see you once again.
Can I ask what?
Well, let me Damon get something in real quick.
Okay. I'm not gonna.
And then we're gonna move it, and we're gonna move in 10 minutes to the next guest. Go ahead, Damon.
Hi, Damon.
I know. I want to thank brother for coming on the show and updating the public on the movement and the agenda to save Mount Vernon Hospital. I do believe that Mount Vernon, as a city with 70,000 residents, need a hospital. I will say that the act of Montefiore is a result of over a decade of lack of accountability of our city leadership in making sure that Mount Vernon was thriving economically, was thriving in its educational system. Is thriving in all the needs that a city needs to have to strive in one of the richest counties in the nation. For Black people, to see a Black city lose a hospital while a white city upstate with only 30,000 people is receiving $84 million from New York State. I think we should be outraged. And I told Pastor Poe this right on Facebook, that we should not allow Governor Cuomo and the Lieutenant Governor to come smile in our faces and walk in our churches and walk on our streets when they do not do the right thing.
For free.
Exactly. You know, we live in a political climate with what they call a quid pro quo, meaning if I give you something, you give me something. But what are they giving the people of Mount Vernon? What has Governor Cuomo done for the people of Mount Vernon?
They have not asked us what we need.
Oh, wow.
Well, no, but we should go and tell him what we need.
We will.
The pastors need to get on his behind. Because when this was announced, I saw that Assemblyman Charles Barron, and I'm going to continue to say this, and we spoke to Assemblyman Charles Barron, and he said when they announced it, first thing, it didn't go through any health committee in the assembly, and he also checked with the chair of the assembly. They knew nothing about it. But at the end of the day, he said, it rests in Governor Cuomo's hands. He is the one that has the power to change it, because he appoints the commission of the Department of Health, the commissioner. We know how that works. When you appoint somebody over a department and they work at the will of you, they're going to do whatever you say. We understand how that works, especially in Mount Vernon government. So for months, for weeks, we tallied around the situation when we should be right now calling Governor Cuomo out for what it is. It's racism by zip code. That's what it is. And we need to stand on that, because it's no way with black people who lead in every chronic disease that you can name. We lead in it because of our bad eating habits. We need a hospital. We got to have a hospital to go to because we're leading in all the chronic diseases.
Is it class discrimination too?
Well, it could be class too, because what happens if you have a city that has been done right, poor city, right? What are they on? Medicaid and Medicare. A hospital can't run off Medicaid and Medicare. So we have to address these issues, and we have to really address all the other issues that surrounding this, because if we want Mount Vernon to grow like every other city, we're going to have a hospital, because that is a pillar of a thriving city, is a hospital. If you don't have a hospital, how are you going to get businesses to come? How are you going to talk about having a hotel and anything like that? So
you're absolutely correct, Brother Dan.
We got to get on our game, right? We have to get on our game. And my problem, I've been a union delegate. I was a union delegate for 13 years for Westchester County Corrections. This rumor about the hospital been closing since 2010. Why haven't the unions called the alarm 10 years ago? Because when Astorino moved the inmates to Mount Vernon, with the Westchester County inmates in Mount Vernon Hospital, he said then, this is a move to make sure the Mount Vernon Hospital get finances because they're in dire need of finances. Lyndon Williams was against the move.
They knew it.
Other people was against the move, but nobody addressed the finances of the hospital. Nobody addressed the finances of the hospital. We sat on it for 10 years. That was reported back in 2010. So now, a decade later, now we want to address it. We should have addressed it a long time ago. And we need our county, we need our state, we need our federal elected officials to get off their behinds. And if they need money, find them some money. We never ask, how much money do you bring to Mount Vernon? We never ask Ingram.
And I need to start asking.
And Brother Damon, we do now have some identifiable action steps that we do plan to take. One of those things is this, that when the Public Health and Health Planning Council does meet, and if this certificate of need is on their agenda, we are going to be mobilizing on short notice, on 10 days notice. We're going to be getting on buses, planes and cars, and trains to go to the site of these meetings, 200-300 strong, 400 is our goal, to let these folks know that you are not going to perpetrate a dishonesty on our community by presenting information to this planning committee that isn't true. The certificate of need is a falsehood because it was the sparsity of services and utilization of services was manufactured. And it makes no more sense to allow that to happen than it does for someone to put an expiration date on a container of sour cream.
I agree.
And so that's one of the things we're going to do. We are also considering what the legal ramifications are. We have available to us, as you know, Article 78 proceedings. If the certificate of need and the application, let me get to the application for funding, has dishonesty in it, the governor cannot and should not go forward with continuing funding of this organization. The other issue is that our elected officials are definitely on board, and I'm going to be honest with you. The things that were rumored in 2010, 2011, 2012, it was hard to get a hold of. And I am now in the forefront of this, as with Brother AJ, yourself, and my sister sitting next to me. We are all going to make sure that this doesn't happen. Now, I want to let you know that Pastor Pogue and myself attended a contract negotiating meeting with the New York State Nurses Association, with community leaders, and with the hospital on the other side of the table. They refused to answer the question as to whether the public had a right to know what they were doing. They refused to answer the question as to whether this looks like racism in healthcare. They refused to answer the question as to whether or not they're negotiating the contract in good faith. I was there. I saw it with my own eyes. And so the hospital negotiators are not, as far as the contract is concerned, negotiating in good faith. Getting back to what we must do, we've got to re-examine how we're getting information out into the community. I agree with you. And so we're going to be looking at that over the next couple of days. We want to inform as many people as everyone that I've spoken to in every part of the community is completely uninformed. And when you see the same faces coming to these community meetings, it's a sure sign that the information needs to be gotten out there in a better way. So we are going to fix that, we're going to tweak it, and we're going to make it work.
I said at the steering committee, utilize Black Westchester and People Before Politics Radio to get the word out. I've invited everyone here, the Nursing Association, everyone to come on here. So I do appreciate you coming. And we will be dealing with the situation in the ongoing situation, disseminating as much as information as we have access to, because people in the house that I live in heard Pastor Poe today talk about it, and even though I had spoke about it, the people that live in the house that I live in were like, wow, we didn't know nothing about this. Oh, we didn't know nothing about a petition. And I've been talking about this. You can't be in the house with me without hearing it, because I've been on the phone with everybody talking about it. But even the people on my block, the people where I live, and right around the corner from the church on 7th Avenue, have no idea what's going on. And that's why we wanted to do this. Lorraine, I wanted to give you have a question real quick, and then Reverend Fuller, last words, and then we're going to go into our next guest.
No, my question was real simple. What was the reasoning for them closing?
They're saying that we're not utilizing the hospital. The bottom line is they're losing money. Nobody's using the hospital, so they're trying to close the hospital.
Oh, that's not right. That's not true.
But they've diverted. Yeah, first off, they cut services.
Right.
First, they cut services. They were supposed to come in. They made promises. Right. They made promises. And all they did was put some paint on the walls, according to the nurses, and put some light bulbs in. They were supposed to be bringing a lot of services from the Montefiore systems into Mount Vernon. They never did any of these things. There is no maternity ward. There's no maternity ward. There's no trauma unit. There's no cardiac unit. So when people have these things that they need, they can't go to Mount Vernon Hospital. And they having the ambulances divert the attention to New Rochelle Montefiore and the Bronx Montefiore, and now they're saying that the people are not using it. Damon, real quick. Wait, Damon, real quick, and then last words. But real quick, because we got to go to the next guest.
I just got to say something, man. Yeah. We allowed them to do it.
I said that.
We allowed them to do it.
I said that earlier.
The people allowed them to do it. So now, the question is, they are able to go to the state board and bring data that nothing is going on at the hospital.
Oh, wow.
We have allowed them. We have allowed them. See, we're gonna talk. Let's have honest talk.
We weren't in the beginning. I said this.
We have allowed them. Yeah. Let me finish. Mm-hmm. We have allowed them to develop hospitals in a 10-mile radius of the city. You got Bronxville, New Rochelle, Bronx, Yonkers. We have allowed them to do that. We had to add to this plan that we have, what will be the or else? to Governor Cuomo, because he's the one that can make it or break it right now. Let's cut the crap. We have to have an or else to him, because because we as black communities throughout New York State, this ain't the first hospital he allowed to close. We just had Mike Sussman on last week. He was a lawyer for one town, and they lost in court. We just had Mike Sussman, one of the baddest civil rights lawyers in the state. But we have to develop what will be the or else for the governor when he does Mount Vernon that. Or are we going to skin, grin, and take pictures with him after this happens? We gotta. There's no need to have a black vote if there's no black agenda. Enough should be enough for the black communities. When we're going to lose a hospital of 70,000 people while the lieutenant governor is skinning and grinning and smiling upstate New York, building a new hospital for 30,000 white folks. Let's start talking what needs to be talked about.
Absolutely. And last words, I want to give you a chance for last words. And in your last words, also tell people where they can get more information, how they can sign petitions, or any process going forward.
We are dropping off information at every community center in Mount Vernon, the Dole Center, the Armory, every public community center. We're dropping information where people can go and sign these petitions. We want to deliver thousands and thousands of petitions to Governor Cuomo's office, to the Commissioner of Health's office, and make sure that they understand that we're not going to take this, we're not going to allow this. It cannot happen. And also contacting the New York State Nurses Association. Anyone can contact them, $11.99. They can get their information, and they will be directed as to where to go. They can pick up information and sign petitions all throughout Mount Vernon. So the other thing that I want to point out, my last remark, is this: the Montefiore complex, and I call it a conglomerate now because I no longer consider it a healthcare facility. It isn't. They're not concerned about our health care. They're concerned about dollars in Medicaid and private payers. So anyway, the issue is this. The new facility that they are proposing to build on Sanford Boulevard will be under the operating license of Montefiore New Rochelle. I want everyone to understand that. Do y'all hear me, Mount Vernon? We will not have any kind of healthcare facility associated with Mount Vernon at all. And as I said before, if that is allowed to happen, which it won't be, 10 years from now, we will go from community to colony.
Well,
God bless you, Brother AJ.
I want to invite the steering committee, the Nurses Association, to continue to come back and to continue to utilize us to disseminate the information and to update the community on what's going on. I thank you for coming. If you can, I don't know if you have a petition on you physically that you can leave with me.
I will leave one with you.
If you can give me information of the people, the Nurses Association, if y'all can just send me the information.
Absolutely.
The Nurses Association, 11-9, the people that they can call. If you give me that information, I will make sure that I will send that out on blackwestchester.com. And
when's the next meeting?
Well, the thing
there's going to be a meeting on Thursday at the meeting site will be determined, but I'll make sure that it gets out into the public.
It's going to be a steering committee.
Steering committee meeting.
Okay, it's going to be a steering committee because we meet and then we bring everything back to the public. So, we just had a town hall Monday, so we'll be letting everybody know when there's another one. But thank you very much, and
thank you, brother. God bless you, man.
Please don't let this be the last time y'all come through. Yeah,
appreciate you too, brother. Love you, sir.
Thank you so much, Brother AJ. God bless you, my sister. It's good meeting you.
Yes, it was a pleasure.
We will be continually updating the Mount Vernon hospital situation as that situation develops. We're going to continually follow and continue to try to dispense as much information as possible, and have more people come on that can speak. And we're gonna. I don't expect Montefiore to actually respond to us, but I'm going to be reaching out to them and the New York Nurses Association and other people like that to see if they can come on and help get some information out. Again, thank you for everybody for tuning in. You could have been doing anything else, but you decided to ride with us, and we greatly appreciate it. This is BlackWestchester.com presents the People Before Politics radio show every Sunday 6 to 8 on InTheMixRadio.com, giving you that real talk for the community since 2014. Thank you for tuning in. Until next week, peace.
22 million black victims of Americanism are waking up, and they're gaining a new political consciousness, becoming politically mature. And as they develop this political maturity, they're able to see the recent trends in these political elections. Any minority that has a block of votes that stick together is in a strategic position. Either way you go, that's who gets it. You're in a position to determine who go to the White House and who stay in the doghouse. You're the one who has that power. You and I have never seen democracy. All we've seen is hypocrisy. When we open our eyes today and look around America, we see America not through the eyes of someone who has enjoyed the fruits of Americanism. We see America through the eyes of someone who has been the victim of Americanism. We don't see any American dream. We've experienced only the American nightmare. We haven't benefited from America's democracy. We've only suffered from America's hypocrisy. And the generation that's coming up now can see it and are not afraid to say it. 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 And I'm not afraid to say.